Okay, we are now in Frank Vandelinde's house in Brunswick, Georgia. This is Bill Consoletti. I'm the historian for the Georgia Division of the Society of American Foresters. And Mr. Frank here has graciously agreed to give me a video interview. Wayne Bell of International Forest Company suggested that I take a video interview of Frank because he knew more about growing pine and nurseries than anybody that Wayne knew. So if Wayne said that, it's definitely time for me to do it. So only thing I notice about this, Frank, is you got to talk up because the sound audio isn't as good on this as it might be. So first off, would you tell me where you were born and a little bit about your ancestry too? That's kind of interesting. And then the way you went over it a little while ago about where you went to school and all that, and all the way through West Virginia and Duke.
Okay. Well, I was born in a little coal mine district in Nellis, West Virginia. My father was working in a mine at that time, and so after as a young lad, I grew up in Boone County. We moved from Nellis to a place called Rock Creek, West Virginia. And Rock Creek, West Virginia is where I grew up until I was 18 years old.
And you were born, what's the date and year? I
was born May the 31st, 1924. And while in Rock Creek, I attended a little two-room schoolhouse where they had the first through the fourth in one room and the fifth through the eighth in the other. And after graduating from this little school, I moved on to high school and went to Scott High School, which was the name, in Madison, West Virginia. I graduated from high school in 1943, and the war was in full swing. And after graduating from high school, I was immediately inducted into the Navy. And while in the Navy, I served in the Armed Guard, which we were the gunners and stood to watch on merchant ships. We were in the real Navy, but we were sailed on the merchant ships.
Oh, so it wasn't the Merchant Marine ran the ships, but you were there as the guard on the Merchant Marine ships?
Merchant Marine ran our ship, but we were the gunners and stood to watch on these ships.
I see.
And while in the Navy, I did mostly convoy duty. We traveled. We brought the goods to the front lines where they were for the war. Where they needed them.
Yep.
So our duty was to transport goods to the war zones. And I had the opportunity while in this duty to travel with one of the largest convoys ever assembled. 155 merchant ships and 20 escorts. We delivered goods. Our ship was loaded with ammunition, headed for Naples, Italy. And when we got to Naples, Italy, they were fighting right on the outskirts of the city. You could see the flash of the guns and hear the noise.
That was about 1943, September?
Yeah, that was 1944, I think.
Oh, 44?
Yeah, it was 1944. And after this, that was our second trip, though. The first trip we went was we went the North Atlantic route, and we went into Plymouth, England, and unloaded a load of goods, and then we went back to the States. And this was our second trip when we were in the big convoy. And
So let me interrupt you. Did you get attacked by U-boats going across?
Oh my gosh, the U-boats were terrible, and icebergs. Icebergs were real bad in the North Atlantic. yeah, they were dropping depth charges all the way. We had these shore escorts. You could hardly see the escorts. They're mostly underwater all the time because their water was rough, 35 and 40 foot waves. And we went up around Iceland, Greenland, and it was the closest route to England. And then after we went to Italy, we moved into Avonmouth, England, where our ship was prepared for the invasion of Normandy, and it was overhauled, and we loaded there, rendezvoused at the Isle of Wight, went in Normandy on D-Day, and dropped anchor about a mile offshore. Just sat there, and all of the activity took place over our heads. Like we had the USS Texas, the USS Tuscaloosa, and the we had several big battleships of the U.S. We had the HMS Series, which was English HMS Rodney, and they were all firing over our heads with 16, 18-inch guns. And, of course, aircraft was dropping bombs, and of course, the LSTs and so forth was shooting on the shore.
Amazing.
It was very, very active things going on. And
so Operation Overlord was not supposed to be known by anybody. You just were told to get ready to go over, and then they tell you when to go over?
Yeah, we just got in when we rendezvoused at the Isle of Wight and got in line, and we just went over. There were LSTs, two broad. We all had barrage balloons on us, for the airplanes. If had barrage balloons, and we just went in and took our turn to going into the shore. And I was there when the Susan B. Anthony come in with a load of troops. So that's about the second or third day, and she hit a floating mine and blowed the bow and sunk right in within 300 yards of us. And I got to see all that, and I actually got pictures of it, of the Susan B. Anthony sinking. And after the invasion after we left the Normandy, we went to Glasgow, Scotland, and moved a Navy base from Glasgow, Scotland into Cherbourg, France. Cherbourg was tore all to pieces. It was a very bad, but the war had moved on. They had gone through this area, and they were moving our people in closer for battle, and so they moved this big Navy base in. And then after that, we shuttled back and forth across the channel for a while, and the thing that was bad in there was those little German PT boats. Man, they were bad. They were fast, and they were so what we used flares. And when we saw the PT boat, we'd shoot these flares up and light the water so we could shoot at them, But boy, they would skip around, you couldn't hardly. They were very good. They sunk a lot of ships in that channel.
While you were in the channel, did you hear the V1s and V2s?
We're just going back and forth across the channel, moving stuff from England over to the other side, And
so you didn't hear any of those V1, V2 bombs? I always heard they made a whistling sound.
Yeah, yeah.
You heard them going over.
They were very bad coming over into England.
Yeah.
Oh man, it was bad. It was bad over there. But they were. Yeah, you could hear them. You could the buzz, and you could hear the bombs falling. Bombs make a whistle too. And what the Germans would do, they got to where the fleet was. The Germans were every 4 hours, just about, they would come over to bomb us. Well, during the daytime, the USS Augusta had radar. The only ship that had radar was the USS Augusta. And boy, they could shoot them down. They'd just go boop, 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 and shoot them. So they would come over right about dusk well, what they had done, they had taken reconnaissance pictures all day. Well, the fleet would move. They would just move over here, and they'd come and they'd drop their bombs in the wrong place.
Oh, that's well.
And pretty clever.
Good strategy.
Very good strategy. But
so where did you end up the war?
what?
Where did you end up at the end of the war?
I ended up. I was in I got out of the Navy in December of '45.
And you told me that you were over near Okinawa.
Yeah.
And that's when the bombs were dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki.
When the war was over in the Atlantic,
yep.
After a leave of 30 days, they sent me to the South Pacific, and there I was on a tanker, and we refueled the fleet around Okinawa, Ulithi, and Wichita. We were just about ready to invade Japan.
Yep.
In fact, they were on Okinawa. They had already taken Okinawa, and they were making airstrips and getting it ready. And our last load of oil, we went right up close to Okinawa. And then the bomb was dropped, and the war was over. So then they just sent us all home, and you were on a point system. The one that had you were posted on a bulletin board. And the one that had the most points got out first. and so when my name come up, why they took you in and sewed what we call a little ruptured duck on us, and give us a mustard out pay and sent us home.
That was it, huh?
That was a good feeling. I'll never forget. I'll never forget when I was coming home, and I came into Charleston, West Virginia, and I was getting the bus to come over to and I got on the bus, and there were no seats. And the bus driver stood up and said, "Give this sailor his seat. Somebody give him his seat."
Very good.
I said, "No, sir, it's just fine." I said, "If you will allow me to sit here in the steps, on the steps of the bus, I'll sit here because it's just so good to be home." And so they all gave me a hand.
Oh, all right.
And then of course I stayed there on the little old West Virginia farm with my dad, and I told him that I would help him put in his crop for that spring, and so he wanted me to go on to school. So I had $2,500 saved up, and I didn't spend any of my money. I sent it all home, and he bought war bonds with it.
Oh.
So I had $2,500 in war bonds, and so he wanted me to go to school. So I applied to West Virginia University. They accepted me immediately. Just said, "Come on up," and so I went up there. Was there 4 years.
You started in '46.
September
of '46.
Yeah, went in 46 and got out in 50.
Yep.
And then, as I said, there was no jobs in West Virginia.
Yeah, you told me that you were thinking of being a vet.
Yeah.
But then you changed your mind to forestry.
I thought I'd be a vet, but there was few vet schools, and of course there was a 10-year waiting list, and they told me that all of the vets' sons and daughters got first choice. So I said, "Well, I got to move on." So I just decided I would be a forester. And of course, I was raised in the woods anyhow, and my back door was in the woods, and I loved the woods. And my dad had taught me all the trees. I knew a lot about forestry before I got. And in biology, I was a good biology student and so forth. So while at West Virginia, I made very good grades. I made the dean's list every time, and on the big biology test, I made the highest in the whole university.
Wow.
So that was pretty good. And so Duke welcomed me with open arms. But when I got to Duke, my old advisor called me in and he said, "Frank, you have taken all the courses that we require for a master's degree already." I had 155 semester hours. And,
from WVU, you had 155?
Yeah, 155 semester hours from West Virginia University. And so they said, "You've got you're qualified, you have done had your master's degree." So they advised me to go out on my field and take courses. So I went out and I took business law and accounting and very hard courses. And all of these courses happened to be taken with senior business students. So it really worked my butt off, you know. But and then I had to write a thesis. A thesis was a 10-hour credit, and I wrote my thesis on yellow poplar.
Yellow poplar?
Yeah, management yellow poplar. And of course, I didn't know that was the dean's favorite tree, and he was elated.
This is Dean Clarence Corstian?
Yeah, that was his favorite tree, and he was elated. And it was a funny thing. I wrote my thesis. I had to write a page at a time because I was going to classes all the time, you know. And I'd come in, I'd write a page or two, and then I went into the living room, and I started with page one, and I laid them all around the perimeter of the living room. And my wife would come in. She was a dietitian at Duke. They gave her a job as a dietitian at Duke while I was there. And I got married the first semester while I was at Duke.
Oh, okay.
So she was there as a dietitian. She would come in and read them. And she would put little notes on them. "Frank, I don't understand this, you know. I don't understand." And when I took my thesis and turned it into my advisor, he said, "Frank," he said, it was a pleasure to read your thesis." He said, "I only found one thing." He said, "If you will change sentence so-and-so on page so-and-so to read this way instead of that," he said, "I'll sign it." So I looked at it. I said, "Well, that's a very good suggestion." And so I changed it. He said, then I had to take it to the old dean.
Who was your advisor at Duke?
Let's see, I can't really think of it slips me right.
Oh, that's all right. But you were there when Schumacher was there and Coyle? And
yeah.
Besides Corstian?
Yeah. I was there when...
Wackerman?
Yeah. All of the... And so the old dean... So he kept it. I just had a few days to get it typed, you know, to get it in. And so I finally asked him. He said, "Don't rush me, Frank. I am enjoying reading your thesis." So he called. I went through the hall one day, and he grabbed me. He said, "I want you to come in. I want to talk to you." So I went in. And he said, "You did just exactly what I wanted you to do on this thesis." He said, "You've done a wonderful job." And he said, "If you will change paragraph so-and-so on page so-and-so to read thus instead of thusly," he said, "I'll sign it." And so his suggestion was very good. So I did that. He said, "Take it to the typist."
How about that?
Yeah.
So did you only spend 1 year at Duke?
1 year.
Yeah.
1 year at Duke.
Because you had all the courses. You
had all the courses.
Business, accounting, and a few others.
Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing.
Had all the courses that they required for masters.
Did you ever think of getting a PhD?
No. Well, I thought about it, but at that time you had to take a language.
Yeah.
You know, I just wasn't going to get messed up taking those languages. Now you don't have to take languages. It's I thought about it, but I needed to go to work. You know, I needed.
I hear you.
I had to go somewhere. I came to Brunswick, Georgia with nothing, absolutely nothing. I had $125 in my pocket and owed 100 of it. So, and there was no place to live. We lived out of the back of a coop, a little old Plymouth coop, and one room and a bath. We lived in there for about 6 or 8 weeks before we got an apartment. And
how did you pick Brunswick Land Company?
Well, it was just Wackerman recommended me.
Okay.
And it was here on the. It was just a nice place to live, you know.
Okay.
And now when I got to Brunswick Pulp and Paper Company.
Call from wireless caller.
I have to let that go. I started out as a cruising timber, and after cruising timber for 3 or 4 years, we were acquiring land. And
I got vegetables starting to run out my ears. Laura greens, carrots are in. Got some.
So we were, as I said, we were acquiring land, and after we got we ended up with 600,000 acres. That's all we ever owned was 600,000 acres. Had lots of leases and so forth, but and then I type mapped. We flew the land with got aerial photographs, and I type mapped for the mapping. And after that, I spent some time buying wood for the mill.
So did you type map all 600,000 acres?
What?
Did you type map all the acres, all 600,000?
Well, with help, you know. I didn't do it all by myself,
okay.
but I did. But I type mapped all the hardwood. I was the only one that knew anything about hardwoods, and I knew all the hardwood species and everything. And so I did all the swamplands by myself. All type mapped all of those. After this. I was asked to join the research department. My boss at that time was Mr. George Anderson, and Mr. George Anderson was a very, very influential forester in the South, and I was his lead forester in research, and we were very active in this department, and we did research for the site preparation.
Mm-hmm.
At that, when I come here, they were planting trees, doing no site preparation whatsoever. They were burning the land and dibbling in seedlings, and after 10 years, they were still little old spindly things. They weren't growing, and I got to noticing when I was type mapping that when they plowed fire lines in the woods and throwed up dirt, the seedlings that growed in this dirt would take off. So that reminded me and Mr. Anderson that site preparation was necessary. So we started cleaning our lands and bedding them, and planting on beds, and our trees grew rapidly. And then we worked out the fertilizer regime through research. And when I left Brunswick Pulp and Paper Company, we were planting about 20,000 acres a year, and fertilizing about 20,000 acres a year. And we fertilized the gumbo soils, you know.
The gumbo soils, yeah.
Yeah, gumbo soils were real good loblolly. It had clay subsoil, triple super phosphate, 250 pounds the acre. The slash pine, we waited till the slash pine was about 12, 13 years old, and we should give it a shot of urea.
Mm-hmm.
And and we fertilized the rest of it with dalmanium, what do you put, phosphate.
Yeah.
How do you pronounce it? And
Dimonium
phosphate.
Dimonium phosphate.
And we worked out all these regimes through a cup and dispense it around little trees and watching them grow, and then we would blow it up to the acre, and we worked out how many pounds, how much it would put right. And we ended up with a fertilized. We took the old farmer fertilized spreader and we took it to our shop, made it much stronger, and we fertilized with the D4 pull disc through the woods, fertilizing. Every other row we'd skip a row.
What was your spacing?
6 by 12. We ended up the best spacing was 6 by 12, and
now was that for longleaf?
No, that's what we planted for all of our
for
species.
all. Okay.
Longleaf, slash, and loblolly. Now we didn't do a whole lot of planting of longleaf till the later years, but now I was the first one to work out nursery management of longleaf pine.
Why don't you talk about that?
All right, they were having all kinds of bad luck planting longleaf pine. So longleaf pine, if you go into the woods and look at the longleaf pine, it takes them anywhere from 3 to 7 years to come out of the grass stage. All right, I got down on my knees and dug up a lot of them and to see what's going on. They have to get 3/4 of an inch to an inch in diameter before they'll start high growth.
And the taproot's got to go down so far.
Yeah. The taproot, they all have a turbid taproot, but before they'll start height growth, they have to get about 3/4 of an inch of diameter. So I decided what they were doing. They were planting longleaf, little old seedlings, too small, and so I reduced the density, grew big seedlings that were anywhere from a 1/2 inch to a 3/4 inch in diameter, planted them, fall seeded them, and ended up going to the shop and making a big heavy duty planter with a big coulter, and because they had a lot of roots, you had to get all these roots in the ground. Most of the people planting longleaf, they were cutting off these roots and planting a carrot, like a carrot, and the trees died. They didn't have any roots. But I said, well, you've got to get these roots in the ground. So we had very good luck planting longleaf pine with this heavy, real heavy. But soon as GP bought us, they got rid of it, sold that planter.
Sold it. So
Yeah,
when you had your longleaf seedlings, was it 1 or 2 years in the nursery?
Well, we would fall seed them,
Yeah.
and all right, they would germinate, and in the next spring they would come on real fast, and they grow up. They were nice big seedlings, and then up in South Carolina, where they have all that federal land up there, they were trying to plant longleaf pine, and so the U.S. Forest Service came down and they looked at.
Probably the Sumter National Forest.
Yeah, Sumter. Oh, I really did a lot. I went up there many times, helped those guys plant, and they were planting them successfully. And then the U.S. Forest Service started growing longleaf seedlings in the South Carolina nursery for them, and they growing them big root collar, like this, and they just went off like gangbusters.
All right.
Yeah, But today, most of your longleaf plantings are containerized.
Yep.
And the containerized seedlings work real good if you have good land preparation. You prepare your land, bed it, plant your longleaf, and then herbicide weed control. First year, keep them clean. They'll come out of the grass the second year. Yeah.
I had a longleaf in my backyard, but I wasn't around a whole lot, and the drought got it.
I did a lot of work with longleaf, and I guess really instrumental in all the longleaf work that's going on today is probably from the work that I started and encouraged. I kept encouraging the planting of longleaf.
Talk to me about that. Let me see, the loblolly seedling that you.
Oh yeah, we were
not the seedling, but the variety.
Yeah, we were very active in going into the woods and picking elite trees. All right, we would pick the elite trees, and then the schools, NC State would send graders down to grade them, and the University of Florida would send graders up to grade these trees.
Yeah, so Brunswick Pulpland was part of the NC State Co-op and the Florida Co-op.
Yes, sir.
NC State was loblolly and shortleaf, and then slash and longleaf at Florida.
Slash and longleaf was Florida, and the hardwood program and the loblolly program was NC State.
Okay.
Bruce Sobel headed up the NC State, and Ray Goddard headed up the Florida program. And so we would pick these, and several of the trees that I helped select are in the program today that are doing real well. And there's one that Mr. Bell says is 756. He said is the bull of the woods. He said
the bull of the woods.
Yeah, it's really doing well. That's one of our trees. And I went to the nursery meeting up here not too long ago, and we went over all of the statistics that what the improved tree program was doing today for the forest, and it was absolutely overwhelming to me. It made me very proud, very happy that I had a part in it. And they're still using it, and they're still working, upgrading their orchards. They're still progeny testing and pollinating and so forth, and it's just getting better and better. And now they say that all of their seedlings that they're planting in the nursery come out with progeny lines that they can identify. So it's just.
I usually ask people, where do you think your profession, your particular aspect of your profession is going to go in 50 years? So if you had to project ahead however long you want, where do you think nursery work and super clones and all that or whatever are going to be for forestry in 50 years? Where do you think we'll be going?
I really believe that the primary work that we did is going to really be overwhelming in the forestry profession for years and years to come. You're ending up with better trees. They're straighter. They're disease resistant, and they've got the characteristics that you really need for a fine tree. And so if they keep on breeding and keep selecting, and why, it'll get better and better. Now when I was when I was working, Bruce Noble, he didn't allow you select any trees in plantations. And so I said, that's wrong. Plantations, that's where you're finding some of your finest trees. So I selected in plantations. And some of the trees that we selected in plantations are some of the finest trees today. And one time we had planted a slash pine plantation in an old abandoned hog lot. This fellow had a hog farm, and we bought the property, and it was a big hog lot. So we planted it full of slash pine, and man, the canker. It was absolutely, I've never seen so much canker. It's one of the worst canker I've ever seen. And so I got the idea, I looked through it, and some of them didn't have any canker. Some of them were clean and And so I said, well, I think I'm going to number those trees and project test them, see what's going on. Bruce Zobel told me, no, you're wasting your time. You're just wasting your time. He said those are just, I forget what he called them, some kind of exempts or something. So I called Ray Goddard. I said, Ray said, Frank, he said, if they, I think you got a good point there. Let's project test. So I did. I rogued everything out of there. Everything out of it was diseased, and I left all of the clean trees. Put a number on them, project test them, and when we project them, test them, they proved to be 65% better than all of the in disease. Now this was in disease, not 65% better in disease resistance than the super trees we had selected.
Really?
So now they weren't producing as much wood, but they were producing real good wood, but they were clean. And so Ray Goddard said, come up and he said, how would you mind if we did a doctoral thesis on that? So George Anderson said, yeah, you can do that, but if as long as you put Frank's name on, it too. So some guy down there in Florida did a doctoral thesis on that research that I did on those trees. I didn't have time to write.
Yeah.
I was busy.
So you worked 1950 to 1989, 39 years for him.
Yeah. Actually, yeah. It's, almost 39 years. 38, so many months, yeah. Yeah.
Long career. And tell them about you wanting to write a book.
Well, yeah. Well, when GP came in and bought us out in 1989, and of course, I didn't know exactly what was going on, but GP. I went out to work one day, and I came in my office had been ransacked. All of my data, everything, and all my files had been robbed, and my whole office was empty. And so I went to find out and they had carried off part of my files to Savannah, and some of it they just threw in the trash can. And I had all intentions of writing a book on my research, and but all of my data was gone. So I was very hurt, very upset about it, and I went to them and tried to get my data back, but they wouldn't give it to me. They said when they purchased our company, they had purchased everything. They purchased my files as well. So that was sad.
That was.
But GP turned around and were very good. They were very good to me. This happened to be a particular person that maybe that was his idea, but I think there would have been a lot of them that would have let me keep my data if I could have seen them. But they offered me a job to stay on, but I was 65 years of age at the time, and spent 38 years in the woods, and I thought it was time to turn it over to the younger generation, and so I accepted retirement in '89.
Did you work with any of the seed companies, like Wayne's company? Did you consult with them at all?
Did a lot of work with Wayne. Wayne cleaned all of my seed. I hauled all of my seed to Alabama, and he cleaned my seed for me. That's when he had that seed cleaning process.
Okay.
Yeah, and I also hauled seed up to Macones, that is, up to Macon to the.
The U.S. Forest Service seed. Seed lab.
Seed lab. They cleaned a lot of my slash pines early in the early years, and they did all my seed testing at lab up there. As soon as I got my seed, and I had it all seed tested, and I had a big cooler up here at the nursery that I made sure that it was dried down properly, and we stored it in big barrels in the cooler. I sold seed to all over the world. I sold it to China, everywhere, particularly slash pine seed. And we had a real nice seed locker up there that was. I furnished South Carolina their seed, and it was a very heartwarming thing for me. I enjoyed my work immensely, and I never regretted going to work a day. I had a good group of men to work with, and we had a lot of fun together, and did a lot of good for the forestry and forest industry.
I'm sure you did. So it was 1 year in the bed, even less than a year, fall to the spring. And then you planted on your own land and also sold your seedlings to other forestry companies?
You mean out of the nursery?
Yeah, out of the longleaf I'm thinking of.
We never grew a lot of longleaf.
Oh.
We just grew them for our own use.
Oh, okay.
And once in a while we had enough we could let a landowner have it, but we never did grow a lot of longleaf, just for our own use.
What about lob and slash?
Now what we did with lob and slash, we grew a lot of seedlings for our lands, and when we purchased timber, we always cleared their land and planted it back for them at cost to us. So we grew enough seedlings.
Private landowners?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we always supplied the landowner with seedlings and planted them back for him, and then of course we sold a lot of. It took about 12 million seedlings for our own use. And we were growing as many as 30,000. Now they're growing 50,000-60,000 up there, and Plum Creek is sold. Weyerhaeuser owns it now, and
so that's who has the nursery now.
What?
That's who has the nursery that you
Weyerhaeuser. Now Wayne's talking about buying this nursery.
Is that right?
Yeah. So I don't know where he will not, but
I dealt with the Super Tree Nursery down there, south of Lumpkin. That's an IP nursery. Did you deal with them at all?
In our Superior Tree program, we dealt with all of those people. There was 20-some in a group. What we did, we had meetings 2 or 3 times a year, and we traded information. and we traded trees. They had our trees, we had their trees, and
this is part of the co-op?
Yeah, they would ship me cuttings by bus in a cooler, and I would ship them seedlings or cuttings, and we all grafted each other's trees and prodigy tested them.
You were telling me before that you really got very expert at grafting.
Yeah, I have done a lot of grafting, and have taught grafting to many people, and I was the first to successfully graft longleaf pine, and had the first longleaf orchard.
Very good. I'm just checking.
All right, and we grafted loblolly, slash, sand pine. We had a sand pine orchard, a loblolly orchard, longleaf orchard, and even had hardwood orchards, but we didn't have too much luck planting hardwoods. Hardwoods planting is you're better off in this section of the country to take natural regeneration in your hardwood stand.
When I was thinking of the future and what might happen with all the cloning and trying to select for just certain characteristics, like getting rid of all the rust on a loblolly, like they used to use Livingston Parish, and then they got to be able to breed it out. Do you think the labs between the U.S. Forest Service and the private labs will eventually produce a tree that doesn't have rust, a tree that doesn't have...
I doubt that. I doubt that very severely, because I tell you, rust is a local thing, and you have the alternate host is your oaks. Now, where you have most of the oaks, you're going to have higher rust, and if you can get away from the oaks, your rust goes down. Mm-hmm. So I would say that producing a tree that's never have any cacker is going. Well, it could happen, but it's going to be. I don't think it'll ever happen. If you have a stand of them, there'll be one or two of them have rust.
Yeah. The last couple of years I was working, the company had a mill in Texas that didn't have much hardwood available down there, so they started growing eucalyptus.
Yeah.
And they got eucalyptus seedlings from New Zealand, from China, from Florida, all over, and they were fairly successful. That's a hardwood, so that's one exception that does take to planting.
Well, see, we've planted let's see, 100. I planted 157 species of eucalyptus, and eucalyptus will not work in this area. It will not work. It freezes. Very susceptible to freeze, and it also has no form to it.
No, it's true. Yeah.
It's crooked as a. And I had a 50-acre orchard up here at Mount Pleasant that I planted, and had all these varieties, especially to answer your question, why aren't you growing eucalyptus? So you could take them and show them it. And GP destroyed it.
Oh.
They let a man go in there and cut volunteer pines that had grown up in. See, as long as I was there, I kept it mowed. I kept it pretty, so you could go in and look and see the different species and everything. And when I left, they let volunteer pine. And he went in there with his clipper, and he clipped off the eucalyptus and piled them up in piles, and just left them. Didn't even take them to the mill. But he cut the pines, and then he would clip it. You can go up there now, and they've sprouted back.
Yeah.
Up Mount Pleasant here.
Pretty interesting. Well, that's been a very interesting discussion here. Do you have anything you want to add? Were you part of SAF? Did you join Society of American Foresters?
Oh yeah, I belong
career?
to the Society of American Foresters. Yeah, I've belonged to the Society of American Foresters ever since I was in college at West Virginia.
Oh, so you're a golden member.
Oh yeah.
Did you hold any offices?
No, I didn't hold any offices.
Oh.
Yeah, yeah.
Did any of your material get published in the journal? Any of your work?
No. I've got a few articles published, but I've given a lot of papers all over the United States, Philadelphia, and all over the South. And it used to be every time we had a meeting, I gave a paper on something, hardwood management or pine or something. But I've given a lot of papers.
Neat. Well, it's never too late to write something up, you know. You got this over here I'm going to write up.
Yeah. That's just. I was just trying to think of anything else. I've had a good working relationship with Wayne Bale. He's done a great job with his seed business and also with his nurseries.
Yep.
And see, what we used to do, we used to have nursery conferences, and we would go at least once a year, and all these nurserymen would get together, and we would swap ideas, you know. And we did this in the Superior Tree Program with NC State and Florida, and everybody got to see my dad. We got to see everybody's dad.
And I'm sure we all benefited from that.
Oh yeah, we all benefited from it, and it was. Yeah. Is there any other questions?
No, I think we're good. I think I'm going to make this available to some people that want to know about seedlings and know about what you've done. So I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
I'll send you a copy of this too.